You did that the other night.
All right, 6:30. Welcome to the Enfield Budget Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order. First order of business, meeting minutes for 9/12 and 9/26. Anybody want to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we accept the minutes with one change. John Klug should be added as part of the select board present.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes and other edits? No, hearing none. All in favor of accepting the minutes as edited?
Aye.
Aye. All right. CIP presentation, Ben?
You got another 10 minutes.
Sure.
Well, I mentioned both, okay.
Oh, okay. I just did the job. I'm good.
You want to do them separate or?
I'm good.
Okay,
Okay.
I lumped both.
Straight up on the screen. Yeah. I know. The CIP committee has had 5 meetings, I believe, at this point. In order to come up with a plan. The plan you're going to see tonight has the next 3 years. Okay, that's what we said, because anything further out than that is basically speculation. There's a lot of things that are out in years 4, 5, and 6 are things like bridges where we don't know when we're going to be finishing them. We also, one of our proposals is an engineering report on all the bridges to see which ones need to be replaced and when they think would be advantageous to replace them. Have the next screen, please. CIP projects. The only one in there you'll see is the $50,000 that we're putting in for Hughes Park parking improvements, repaving of it. It will come out of TIF funds. It will not come out of CIP. When that was originally paved, the final coat was never put on it. And if you look down around the pavilion, there's a lot of patches at this point. So we're saying it needs to be, the entire parking lot's gonna need to be repaved.
Do we know when that was done last time without that?
It would have been when the community building was built, probably. Actually, that was just the other side.
No, it's been done since then.
Has it?
Mhm.
They only did the parking lot side. They never did the original part
Right,
around the building itself.
yeah.
No, and like we talked about, I don't know the date, but Jim said they put the base course down on the asphalt and never put a finished top coat on it.
Right.
Which is not good for it either.
And there's been some talk of a rail trail along 4A. Would that fall under the category of CIP projects?
Boy, I wouldn't think so.
It would, yeah, and it's actually in here for the engineering. It's the
Oh,
byways
you
grant.
mean byway.
Yeah,
Okay,
Or
yeah, engineer it for the byway, but I thought you
No,
were
we call it byway.
building the rail trail itself.
and as of right now, it'd be a grant match.
Right.
It's not the project.
Yeah.
So 20% of the project, and then what you'll see in the plan as we go forward is the kind of the engineering phase of it. We're not gonna be able to build it with the grant that we have. So
You didn't get to that, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a moment.
It's a byway.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's in the,
It's
in
in
the
there.
plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
This is the facility piece of it.
okay,
Yeah.
what is the, shoot, can you shoot the next one up? Which is Public Works. Okay, as you can see, there's the Shaker Boulevard Bridge is in there. Because that is being paid for by the state of New Hampshire. That's why you see, there's major grant money. The only thing we have is the match on it, which is not a large match for the boulevard, for that bridge. But the total bridge is gonna be $1.94 million. Yeah, and, yeah.
Yeah, I just.
Ours is actually 48,
What if
28.
they're paying for it?
Is our piece. If you look, it's 2 different years.
Oh, okay,
25, there's 28,000.
okay.
26, it's 20,000. Some of the other highlights there are DPW paving driveway salt shed apron, which is in 2026. One that's not on here that I want you to, that does not show in the 3 years on here is, go down to line 7, the grader replacement.
Uh-huh.
What we've said to Jim and talked to Ed about is, remember the Volkswagen money we got for the truck last year where
Mhm.
with the Volkswagen money, 80,000 was paid because they pay 80%,
Mhm.
is that we put in the grant now. While there's still money there, that would mean that they would be paying 80% of that $450,000. We feel that just keep putting in the grant until they approve the grant.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want to see happen is, they're saying they think the money should last up to 10 years. Well, with the state of New Hampshire, they may get 5 or 6 years out and go, oh, we've got some trucks we can replace with it, rather than the municipal trucks. Because what it is, it has to be the old diesel engines.
Yeah.
Which for the most places, vehicles that are over 30 years old, the grader fits into that. As do 1 or 2 more of the trucks that we have. But we want to put this one in now, hoping to get that one first. We may also put in for a truck at the same time. See if we could get, because we still have, if you've been around long enough, we talk about the old Sterlings. Which is, Sterling's no longer makes the trucks. We still have 1 Sterling left. The one we got the grant on last time was a Sterling. The other thing we're finding is that truck that was approved in March. It's taking 20 to 24 months for it to get delivered. Yeah. So that's why we're saying, even if we get the grant this year for the grader, it'll probably be 2 to 3 years out, because in talking to Jim, graders are even further out than dump trucks are. So we had originally said we need to replace it around 2028. So if you get the grant now, it probably wouldn't get delivered till 2028. Let's see, we've got the loader replacement. That's another one that we probably will put a grant in on to see if we can get it or not. Because that's another big piece of equipment. It's $230,000. The 20,000 in grants, I believe, is actually traded on the old one.
So Dan, as a clarification, the plan is if we don't get the grant on the grader, we are not getting it, and we're just gonna reapply the next.
Just gonna keep reapplying. Yeah, just keep reapplying for that grant until we do get it.
Yeah, till we do get it, or till we get to that point in the
Right.
plan where we have to order it.
Right.
Right. And then at that point, we'll decide, because the grader, I believe it's about 8 or 10 years now since it was rebuilt. Because we said we could get another 10 years out of it if we rebuilt the engine. So that's what we did. CIP did. Probably now 6 or 7 years ago. The other thing you'll see is Shaker Bridge Pump Station. That is not CIP money. That is going to be a sewer project, which means the funds are gonna come out of the sewer people.
Yeah, it's the bond that was
It's
already
the bond that
approved.
was already approved.
It's just on the plan. Cause it's gonna be done this year.
The same thing with the prior well generator. And the phase two of the 1903 water main replacement, which is got it in for 2025. Like we say, those pipes are from 1903. And they're finding that that's the spots where main breaks are. So we're gonna have to have it replaced.
In the lead?
No,
Some of the goosenecks and
Goosenecks
connections
might
might be,
be, but-
but the pipe itself is not.
which is another thing that is not on CIP, but the EPA came out with new regulations that say you gotta find all the lead and you gotta replace all the lead. And not just our pipes on the road. It's pipes going into the houses
That are on public water systems, right?
that are on public water systems. Yeah,
And
Thought
excuse
we
me,
did that before. Did they not all get done?
No.
Cause,
in people's houses,
yeah, cause I did mine.
I think
I did our
some of them have been done.
Right, but
They
the
haven't
other-
done it townwide.
yeah,
Thought it was.
they may be going one step further this time where you're gonna have to dig up your front yard to see whether or not it is lead pipe. Or whether or not there are lead elbows or,
I wonder if it was just restricted to the more compact downtown area because we did our house, we did our apartment building.
yeah,
Friends that I know lived around us, they all did theirs.
When
Was-
did you do it?
I would guess in the 1990s sometime, maybe.
I bet that's when they were replacing the water line. They probably went through and
Right.
asked everybody along that line.
We all
to
got a
replace
letter.
them.
yeah.
Probably find it, but I know we did it.
I know they haven't all been done because there's still some in town.
Right.
So we're working on that. We'll see.
There money
Where it's
available
coming.
for that? For EPA?
That's a good, they have
There ought to
not
be.
funded it yet. At this point,
No, we'll be
they're leaving
asking
it
for
up to the
some.
municipalities, but you probably will be able to put in grants for it.
What happened in Claremont, I can tell you what happened there is we got one of these SRF loans to do some water work and they said, you'll
Right.
take it out of that. And then they
Right.
gave some forgiveness with it.
yeah, and on line 11.
Yep.
There's no numbers associated. Is that go up beyond 27?
Yeah, it's because it goes beyond 27.
Gotcha.
Our plan is a 6-year plan, but we're only proposing the 3 because those out years, as I said.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
if it's in there at 27 and the utility truck's still good, you put it off. It's the same thing, you know, when we get to public safety. If the hybrid cruisers are still in good shape and have some low mileage, you're not gonna replace it just because it says we're gonna replace it that year. Any other questions on public works?
Was there anything that Jim, and Ed, I suppose, said, hey, we'd really like this, but CIP said, no. No.
I can't think
No.
of much. There's a few things I said no.
Right, yeah.
Came across
we-
my desk and I, no, we're
And
not
there's a
buying
couple
that.
that got pushed a year out.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
one that
that's-
keeps getting pushed is the 85,000
Right.
for the driveway sand apron. It's paving in front of the salt shed over there. And, you know, we're doing salt, so it thaws the ground in the winter and it turns into a mud hole where they're trying to fill. So they really want to get it paved.
Mhm.
It was in this year's and there was just enough going on with the pumper fire truck and stuff that was done. And we said, no, let's push it to next year. We'll keep having the discussion, but we really haven't come to a yes, we're gonna do it. It's just, let's just keep it on the forefront all the time and keep talking. But there was a few other odds and end crack sealer and some other machines that they would like to have that got cut before it got to the CIP committee.
So the reason I ask is I know we're all talking about having a lean budget
Mhm.
and I'm all for it. But by the same token, I don't see the pendulum swing too far the other way, and then
Right.
3 years down the road, all of a sudden,
Right.
we're raising taxes again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By using months.
We'll talk about that some later.
Okay.
And then any questions then on it? That it? Next slide, please. Public safety. Okay. You can see 2025 is the tanker that was not in the CIP plan, which meant when it was approved by the select board, it means that we're gonna have to pay cash because they had to put the purchase order in order to do it. And if we were gonna finance it, we would have had to have had it in last March as a finance project. So that's why you see a drop, you'll see a drop in cash in 2025 because of the
Thank you so much.
$383,000 that's going to come out as cash. I don't even know if we would have financed it back then.
Yeah.
Because the interest rates were as high as they were going to be
Mhm.
in March, April, May.
Well, and we did have a lot of discussion last year in CIP before it was recommended by the CIP committee to the select board.
Right.
To purchase this piece of equipment of how to pay for it. Do we pay
Right.
cash payments over 3 years?
Yeah.
Do we finance it? Do we just?
Yeah,
do
we
one lump
talked
sum?
about giving them money up front if they'd lower the price, but it wasn't worth it.
No, and it's,
So we're saying we'll pay for it when it gets here. And I doubt it'll be here before late in 2025.
I think it's supposed to be mid, but we'll see
Yeah.
when it actually shows up. And then we do have a water tender.
Yeah.
That's the 10,000 and other that we're gonna sell when
Yeah.
it gets here, so.
Okay, the fire department's cascade system, which is it'll be going in the new station.
I have a correction. I think the 10,000 was the fire truck we traded
We
in.
traded in.
And then we're gonna be selling a
Right.
water tender that'll be on top of that, whatever we
Right.
get for it.
Yeah. Cascade system is where they refill their air tanks. Definitely needed.
And we do have a grant in for that. So
Yeah.
that's another reason that's on next year. So we're waiting to see if we get that grant or
Yeah.
not.
There aren't gonna be any radios replaced next year because the chief has said he's got enough radios. So we've put them out. Had said enough that we're gonna replace 3 every year, but he's got more radios than he needs right now. So he said, we don't need to replace any next year. Keep it in the following 2 years. If we need them, then we'll put it in. If not, he'll pull it out again next year. And police cruiser replacement.
330, is that correct?
Well, it's 330,000 because that's on the 6 years. All it's showing here is, it's showing the first 3 years here, but the other 3 years are out in the 27, 28, 29.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And the 2025 is higher
right.
because it's the additional cruiser that we're adding and we have to fully outfit it and stuff. And then in the next year, it'll be a replacement cruiser and we can move
Right.
equipment. So,
And it'll be replacing Ford Expeditions that we've got the right size for, right?
Yeah.
I would suspect, yeah, because it's a different size too than the old cruisers.
We have 7 cruises?
we will have.
We
seven
will
cruisers.
have 7. And, yeah. And as you can see, when I started this about 8 years ago, cruiser was $35,000. They've gotten a little more expensive, shall we say.
And the maintenance projections,
But
and the
I-
chief can probably speak to it better, but we've projected that we get a little bit more out of them and it's
Right.
starting to look like we're gonna get even more than we projected. So the maintenance is gonna make them last longer than we thought.
How much will the cruisers be when they don't have to have all the extra equipment?
It'll be the
About
60,000.
60, yeah.
Any questions on public safety?
Just an accounting question, I guess. So if the fire tanker doesn't arrive in 2025 and gets pushed to 26.
Yep.
We just,
We just let it roll. Yeah. Yeah, it's already been ordered, so we're committed to it, but it could be 26.
Right.
Next slide, please. Is admin, okay, if you were at the, select board meeting on Monday, we talked about the ballot counting devices. It's a 50-50 grant. The state is saying you need to change your ballot, basically change your ballot counting systems. We'll be paying 6,000 to 13,000. The other 7,000 will come from the state of New Hampshire. They've offered it to all towns, but you've got to get it in. Yeah, believe you've got till 2026 to get it in, but what Lindsay would like to do is have it here in time for town meeting. We'll use the old one in November, but when town meeting comes, we'll be able to use the new one because there aren't as many people who vote normally at town meeting as do in November, and we really probably wouldn't want to have a problem, right out of the gate.
That's right there.
Thank you. Could be enough problems and we don't want that to become a problem. And that is not at all connected to the internet. It is a freestanding machine because people have asked that question. So the ballots we put in are the numbers that come out.
they're asking that question because they're thinking they don't have to go to town meeting or you're gonna stay.
No, they're asking that question because of out there in the Yoo-hoo land where it says they're changing it because it's attached to the internet and they can change the votes.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay,
Someone dials in and changes the votes.
right. Somebody in Venezuela.
And is the line above that the byway we talked about?
Yeah, it is the byway.
And that's, like I said, the engineering portion of
Right.
that.
And that's a nice grant.
That's the portion that, yeah, we have. The total project we don't have in here because we're not gonna put it in unless there is a grant.
No, it needed to be obligated by
Right.
last month, the construction part, and
Right.
since we're still in engineering,
So it's
whatever
gonna
we
have to
don't
be a
spend is
new
gonna
grant.
go back.
Mhm.
I will be talking to the select board fairly soon. They just released a byways 2 second round of the same grant. So hopefully we'll be getting some engineering numbers pretty soon and we'll be able to put in for that grant for the actual construction.
So from a CIP standpoint, both projects, the total that CIP is going to be putting into it is 35,660. The rest is going to be grants. And that leads us to the summary of what we see is going to be put in. We'll be putting in a warrant article for financing for $675,000 this year, which with the interest rates going down, it's probably the time. Also, we've pretty much stretched the cash as far as we can stretch it. And at the same time, we've dropped the debt. If you wait and look to the next page. Originally, I believe, you went back, I believe, 2021. It was over $300,000 debt payment. Since we turned to cash and spent cash the last 3 or 4 years, they've lowered the debt service. And we'll, you know, we compete with, we'll completely get rid of some of the larger ones in the next few years. But as you can
The
see,
larger loans.
yeah.
Yeah.
The two, I mean, we're gonna be down to the existing loans in 2026 will have been down to 167,000 in payments. And that's when we're gonna start adding back up. And you know, it could change if some of those projects don't happen and we have more cash, then we may decide, okay, let's not let's not finance something if we can spend cash on it. That's what we're trying to do, is keep a level cash also when we can.
So like, for example, in 2026, the total outstanding debt, if we do what we say we're gonna do, is the 167, 198 plus the 62, 479.
Exactly.
And those are debt payments.
That's debt payments. It's not
Their
debt.
payments from the
That's debt
CIP
payment.
fund,
Right.
Yeah,
Not
not
total
debt
debt.
payments from taxes.
it's the debt payments. I mean, a couple of the big ones that we've paid off in the last few years are Jones Hill, which was a large one. And back a few years ago, we were financing cruisers. We're not financing cruisers anymore. We will have one of the fire trucks will be paid off in the next 2 years, I believe. The original, the one that's in Enfield Center. Because I think that was a 12-year loan. And it'll be 12 years that we've had that one. So,
So again, I'm a little confused, which is not difficult, but.
Yep.
So if I go back to Public Works, we have a $2.5 million water main replacement.
hopefully it's a million,
Million.
2.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that, no?
That's a billion problem.
Billion, did I say billion? I heard billion.
I said, we're
Why
doing
do I
good,
get
but we can't.
confused?
What's
We're
in
doing
that
good, but-
water, Dan?
We're doing good, but we can't cover that loan.
So if I look then at your CIP expense summary, that shows we're financing as the major driver behind the 2.770.
Right. No, the
No.
2.5 is coming out of sewer and water. It's
Yeah, it
not
won't
even,
be CIP.
not even going through CIP at all.
Okay,
That'll be paid by the users.
got it. So I guess my question was gonna be, we jump up from 675 to 2.770. But yet,
Oh, that's the grant.
That's a grant,
That's the grant for the bridge
right?
on
Shaker Hill,
Shaker.
Shaker Boulevard.
See, so Public Works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the grant. We're not paying. State's paying that one. We are paying it, but the state's giving us the money.
Yeah, each one of those lines below is a different funding source on the
But
bottom.
you're looking at 377. No, it's actually something else. It's a water main replacement finance
Yeah.
in 2020.
So that's going from water.
That's
Come
coming
from
from water.
water.
So now this CIP expense summary, I'm looking cash, grant,
Yeah.
finance.
Yeah.
So it's we're financing 675 this year, now we're financing 2.770 in 2026.
Yeah, so that is a little, you have to look essentially at the funding source.
Right.
That's the water.
Oh, it's
It's the water.
It's
It's
the
the
Now,
water.
this is little
Yeah.
misleading.
Yeah.
CIP is only.
I'll catch up.
That's okay.
Sure.
Well, and there's always a little confusion about that. The CIP plan, not the CIP fund.
Okay.
The CIP plan has all funding sources in it. And the CIP fund is a specific way of funding some of them.
Got it, thank you.
It's the top one.
And just one other thing. We asked it, there's, if you notice the highlighted, when you get to this one.
Yeah.
The highlighted one of 600,000, why did it go up so much and then come back down? Because CIP paid for the replacement when somebody put the metal bar through the, chipper. It went up to 600,000 because we then, the insurance company paid $46,000, so CIP was reimbursed for that $46,000. Which is why the deposits went up and then they're going back down because obviously this year it'll go back down to just the nickel edition in 2025. And I don't know if we have an answer. We had asked, if you look at 2023, why there was a $26,000.
And we don't yet.
We don't yet have an answer, but it has to do with the trustees of the trust fund.
Yeah, we need to look at that because it's not just interest, it's interest and adjustments. And so there's a lot of things
It
that.
may be
happen in
that the original report was wrong and it got fixed.
there.
And to fix it, they had to lower, not just us, I suspect, all of them,
So,
all of the capital reserves. But we're one of the larger ones, so it had a larger effect on us. Any other questions? I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going home. Thank you.
Oh, you're not fun again.
It'll be number 4 this week.
And I assume you're presenting the next topic?
yes, I can talk about the next topic. And let you know what I put in there. As you remember, we've had discussions about COLA and how we were gonna do it. We agreed that we were gonna base COLA off the Boston metric from July to July. We discussed a little last month that, the August CPI is a little bit lower than the July CPI. But if we pick a month and stick with it, we'll be same year to year to year to year going forward. But, if we bounce all around, we can play the game to be higher, or play the game to be lower, and it's not fair to one side or the other. So when we did that, the CPI for this year from July to July is 3.5% based on that Boston metric. And then last year, we also discussed, I'm gonna call it a 2-year phase plan of the compensation adjustment. There are a few employees that are on the 4-year plan. So I went ahead and did some adjustments of rate based on CPI, looked at that. Most of the percentages, because we did it in a 2-part one, the percentages actually went down a little bit this year. Which makes sense. If someone was 4% away from their mark and we gave them 2% last year, another 2% would actually push them past the mark. So I did all those adjustments to bring the rate back to where it should have been with the cost of living added into it. I did not take into account any merit raises or anything anywhere else. It was just, this is what the compensation study said people should be at, adjusted by CPI. That's where we should be at this year. And like I said, the percentage that I added on this year to bring them to that was lower than last year. And
So
Pretty much
the
every
step
case.
slash merit is automatic.
we haven't done the step merit plan yet. We're still trying to play catch up from the years that we didn't pay people enough and we're behind on the compensation study.
Okay, so it's based on the compensation stuff.
It's based on the compensation study completely. This will be
There's no,
I'm gonna call it last year.
there's no review of the person and their performance or anything like that. It's automatic.
There is some of that. I mean, we do performance reviews every year and we look and.
Are raises based on that, or is it typically just an automatic?
We have not got to a step or merit plan yet. We did the compensation study, which was based on the person, time and grade, what other people are getting paid around here.
Other towns?
I have a big leadership philosophy that if you're not cutting the mark, you shouldn't be working here. So I mean, if it's someone that shouldn't be getting a raise, they're getting a needs improvement plan and we're going through that. We have held some people back. Last year we had a couple employees that didn't get their full raise in the beginning of the year and we wanted to see them hit a certain mark by a midpoint in the year. And then actually both of them ended up earning the rest of their raise, but they didn't get it the first part of the year. So, so we do look at evaluations. We do evaluations annually. We have those discussions. Getting off this subject a little, but my personal philosophy is, if you're getting a bad evaluation, you shouldn't learn about it at your evaluation time. We should already know that. We should be going into that. So I really push my department heads that evaluation time is a great time to open that communication if you don't do it already and talk about what you're doing good, how you can improve, how you can be more valuable to the town. Try to set those goals, not only in the work life, but personal life to better yourself. And so we really try to use our evaluations as that. And if someone's at a point where they're going to be getting deducted raises or not full, we have not got to the point where it's, wow, you're an exceptional employee, so we're going to give you a little bigger raise. And that really doesn't happen a lot in the public sector. It happens in private industry quite a bit, but it doesn't happen much in the public sector. And it's usually because we're tight on funding and we don't have that kind of money to do that. The one thing I have done the last couple of years is the few exceptional employees that really go above and beyond in the year. I've been giving like a one-time $1,000 bonus at the end of the year or something. Some of them are a little less. One employee, I gave some extra vacation because they had some personal stuff coming up. They needed some time off, but no real raises that go on their base pay for the long term. So
What's our voluntary turnover rate? How many people do we-
voluntary.
Yeah, people leave, people quit, not get fired.
Right.
Attrition.
It's hard. I don't have the rate in my head. It's kind of sporadic. We lost 2 in the police department. I'll say last year, one was December, one was January. That's a pretty big percentage of that department. We've had a few in.
So you don't feel like we're losing employees because of wages?
We were. I think we're getting to the place now where we're caught up and we're actually just starting to reap the benefits of actually being able to put out job ads and get applicants. The police chief went over a year not getting any applications. The DPW has had a hard time getting applications over the last few years, and we're starting to get our compensation to the market rate. People are applying. We're getting people from other departments to start, or other towns to start to look and apply. And most of our positions are that way. And I think people need to understand that a lot of them are specialty niches. Yes, we have some administrative staff and stuff that can go everywhere, but they're kind of specialty niche type positions that, for the most part, we trade employees between towns. That's really about all we do. And not to put scare tactics out there, but it's happening right now. Our employees are getting calls at home and getting job offers without applying for jobs. So there's active recruitment going on. It's a little bit different job market than the private sector. Not that some of that doesn't happen in the private sector, but it's happening a lot. So, I've heard multiple stories in the last year, probably 4 or 5 of people that have been taken to lunch for job offers or called at home and talked to from other towns. And so those things are happening. As I've said, I think we're at a good spot. I would like to put this second phase of the compensation study in, but then I think we've done the catch up that we've been working over the past few years to do. We had many years before that and Dimitri had the slide. I looked at it today. I was trying to find it to put it together to show for this year, but for many years we were behind COLA. And we didn't, and that was
Yep.
COLA and merit. We didn't give merit raises. We were under COLA. I handed you this early compensation. We put out a study online. Actually, one of the other town managers did, and I was happy to just steal information as it came, but it's really early in the season. A lot of people haven't decided. They haven't talked to their budget committees about raises. But a lot of people were able, or some people were able to put the information out, and as you can see, most, but not all, give a COLA and some sort of merit and step raise. So some of our neighbors are doing some different things. Lebanon are giving non-union employees an extra 3% on top of the 3% step and 3% COLA. Not to say we need to compete with Lebanon, but we are in competition with Lebanon. But I think some of that is because some of their non-union employees have not been getting what the union employees have, so they're trying to level their scales as well. But if you look at this, and then we can go through the other sheet as well, but the average in there is 4.7. I don't know that it's a really good number, but if you add the other 3 for the extra merit people, it brings that up to 4.8% is kind of what the average is looking like right now. As I said, it's a little bit early on this. On Laconia, as you can see, theirs is a little range of the way they're doing it. So all I did to put their numbers in was take the average or the middle of that range to just give us some idea of what the rest of the public sector is looking like right now. We can continue to update that. I'm sure that question will go around a few more times through the budget season, and I'll just keep grabbing data online as I can get that. But then we went ahead and put together the summary of salaries like Dimitri did last year. But, and right now, if we look at that and we take out some of the overlaps and things that I'll look at, we're sitting at 5.15% if we put water, sewer, everything in there, and it's 5.31% on average with COLA and merit in the general fund section only. But you have to look a little higher. If you look at the top one, that's the actual numbers going up. So 7.2 on general fund wages. And if you have
That
everything,
seems high.
6.82, but you have to look at some things. We have another one of those things that we did last year that are biting us this year. We took half of a police officer out for half of the year because we were vacant. We said, let's take half of that out. Well, now we have to add that half back in, which gets added to last year's number. And then we have a couple positions that we have some overlap, 1 month overlap. It's not a big number, but assessing and recreation are going to be turning over this year, and we're budgeting 1 month worth of salary to overlap those positions for training purposes.
So you're saying Julie's retiring then, Ed?
Julie's retiring at the end of 2025, so we're planning on hiring someone in the November timeframe so we can overlap and do some training. And then Kevin's leaving in May. We're looking at hiring a new rec director and overlapping for about a month if we can find somebody. And
So on the highlight, so police officers for a half a year is 200,000.
no, you have regular raises in there, then you have half a year, half a police officer was what?
Was it the 36,000?
Right, so I'm trying to understand, it says, the highlight says at the bottom, removed half of the newest officer for apple to apples. Right? And the 2025 number went from 2.768 to 2.565, and that's over a $200,000 drop.
Okay, so the top chart, which is all lines, that includes your elected officials, your ambulance, your firefighters, your
Right.
part-time, and all that. The bottom two is the compensation plan positions.
So none of your elected officials, none of the ambulance, none of the fire.
Oh, okay.
None
So
of
it's
the
not
overtime.
just the removal of the officer, it is, you're saying it's the planned wages only plus removing half of an officer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The plan wages was in the title line, not the yellow highlighted, so. So we just tried to highlight that out, that I'll call them regular employees, because they're not all full-time employees, but our regular staff that has normally scheduled hours that you would consider the ones that would be getting COLAs and raises and those types of things would fall into that category. And then we have, not that the firefighters and stuff don't get raises, but we congregate them and we don't know exactly what that'd be. They don't have regularly scheduled hours. elected officials and some of those different people that we have working through us through the year get stipends and contract amounts and those types of things. So we pulled all those out.
Just out of curiosity, what are vital personnel?
Vitals are your clerks and vital records. Is kind of what that stands for. So birth certificates, death certificates.
Elections,
vital
registrations, and
record.
vital statistics is rather helpful.
Thank you.
And then there's a couple places that we put in what I don't want to say considered high numbers, but executive personnel, I put myself in at a COLA, but I'll be talking to the select board at the next meeting about moving through my evaluation process and they'll determine what that is. We'll adjust accordingly. And then I'm gonna talk to you about coming to the library meeting because we haven't discussed library wages, so I just put them in at the high level and we'll be discussing. So there still may be a little bit of tweaks and I tried to put things in at the higher level that they were. I also want to let the committee know, as we were doing this sheet, I went back through the compensation plan and things quite a few times. Part of that plan is, not just taking their numbers and saying, here's where people are, but kind of, I'm going to say massaging those numbers, looking at where they're at on the growth scale of their position, what our position actually does towards some of the people that I know and neighbors. I didn't push any of those up. I pulled a few of them back a little bit as we went through this, trying to keep us in line. There's a couple positions that I think we really hit market, and maybe what they said was market is a little higher than what I think market should be. So there are a handful of positions or so through there that I pulled down a little, but for the majority, I think most of them stayed pretty close to what the compensation study said they should be at. And I think it really came down to, and we talked about this last year, that we had I don't want to say a big chunk, it was less than half, but a chunk of people that were quite a ways behind. And then we had a lot of people that were really close. And out of 43 positions that fall on this pay scale with part-time and people all over the place, about 15 of them got COLA this year only.
Ed, you're showing a total of 6.82% increase. If you had 2004 without any vacancies, what would the number be?
I don't know, we'd have to add back in a couple. Well, the only one we would have taken out was the police.
Yeah, but then you had a couple, I know throughout the year, you've said, we've got an opening and I'm not rushing to fill it because I want to save the budget.
But they were budgeted, so it would have still been the budget number.
So these are not actuals, these are budget numbers for 2024.
Yeah.
Okay, so that 6.82 is a
Yeah.
apples to apples comparison.
And then the other thing we get throughout the year, and we had a little bit of it, but not a lot, is someone's gone, we hire someone, we bring them in, they come in at, the negotiated rate's a little bit higher than what we were paying the person before to get them in the door, those types of things.
Actually, the 6.82 is not strictly apples to apples because that's everything. And that does not pull back the half a year that we did not budget for a police officer in 2024. So that top one does not have an adjustment
Yep,
for the removal of half of a year of police officer salary. The whole thing is in there. So that's not, the 6.82 is not apples to apples the way the other two chart sections are.
okay, so I should be
Yeah.
looking at the charts on the right.
The
to get
one,
apples to
only the yellow highlighted figures are adjusted for
Well,
removing half a year of an
Yeah.
officer.
Right.
the top one is what's actually happening, but part of that is adding those positions back in. I mean, it's just like using CIP money to write down the tax rate. We
Yeah.
pulled stuff out we knew we were gonna have to put back in.
Right,
just to
and that's
keep
what I'm trying
last
to
year
avoid,
low.
because it's gonna be overinflated, that 6.82, if you're not comparing to a fully loaded 2024. I wanna make sure we're comparing a fully loaded 25 to a fully loaded 24 with 0 vacancies.
Well, and that's what we tried to do on the bottom.
Correct.
But what we did was we pulled out, which they weren't getting a lot of raises. There's no raises in the stipend area, those things anyway, but we pulled out the stipend, the executive. The one things that you won't see in there that did raise was, if you look at the ambulance personnel, that went up quite a bit,
Mhm.
40% or something.
66.
As I said, or was it, yeah. Anyway, they're responding a lot more. We've talked in the emergency services committee that they're woefully underpaid right now, so we're gonna try to raise those a little bit to get more participation in the ambulance. So, we pulled all that stuff out of that top number down to the bottom to show this is what staff is getting. We could run some of those numbers for you, like overinflating 2024 to what it should have been.
Right, is that
Then there's
just,
gonna be some, we can leave ambulance and stuff alone and say this year's, because we're responding more, needs to go up, but
is that just half the officer?
I think it would pretty much be just half the officers,
So how much is that offset?
36,000.
36,000-ish.
And the large increase on the police personnel, that's the addition of the additional officer that we hired.
Yeah, there's the half year additional officer on there and then normal police raises. And there is on there also, $5,400. We did a study on call, what people are getting paid, what police officers are getting paid on call. We're paying $3.50 an hour right now. It's hard to do apples to apples because everybody does it different, but we took, some of them pay 2 overtime hours for a whole shift, 2 hours for a shift, 3 hours for a shift, and 8-hour shifts. So we took all those and then we divided them down. That averages that most people around are getting about 8 hours, $8 an hour for an on-call shift. We didn't go up that high, but we
So you pay
looked
them to
at,
be on call even if they don't do a call type of deal.
yeah, we
Yeah.
pay them to be ready to
Yeah.
respond if needed. So we looked at taking that, was it to $6 or $6.50?
No, we went up to the 8.
To the 8?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were looking at doing 8 and that was $5,400 for the year. We don't have a lot of on-call, especially when we're fully staffed. But needed a little bit more money, so that's added into that line as well.
So Ed, can you remind me again about, not trying to pick on ambulance, but just sort of watching in our neighborhood in recent weeks or months? Do we have a set time that Lebanon covers and Enfield doesn't, or?
Yes. Lebanon is contracted to cover from 6 AM to 6 PM. On first call out basis. And then I'm gonna say third call out, but we get toned a few times in the evening and on weekends, and if no one's responding, then Lebanon gets called automatically. What we're hoping to see, and I haven't got that bill yet, we won't get it till about the December timeframe. I carried the same number for Lebanon in the budget. But we're hoping that with our increased response, we see some decreased response on their side, which hopefully equates to a decrease in cost. There was a slight increase this year in per call cost for Lebanon, but it wasn't a lot, so. It's always a balance. We've done some of the math and I don't remember the numbers, but it's almost half the cost or about half the cost if our people respond compared to Lebanon responding for us, so.
And has the issue come up yet amongst the selectmen about the soft billing and the hard billing, or no?
No, we haven't had that discussion.
Can you clarify for me, the compensation study, basically for the bulk of the people we're phasing it in 2 years, except for the ones that had the big gap.
If they were over 20% behind,
Right, and I
then
know
we
we
were
had,
doing a 4-year and
right,
we're also working with those positions to see,
compare.
yeah, is our person actually at the level of what they're saying?
Am I remembering this correctly? There were about 4 or 5 of the ones that were way off.
Yeah, there was a handful or so that were in that 4-year.
And so next year, those 4 or 5 will get a little closer. Right, and the following year, because you said 4 years, correct?
Yeah, if we continue to go to that full mark, and I look at it annually, because positions
Right.
change all the time, but
All right, and then the other people, we won't be doing the boost, we'll be doing the COLA and
Yeah, I
Whatever
plan to
you do
have
to
some
there.
sort of step or merit plan by next year to present to you guys and the select board. But how that works is yet to be known, but, you know, I think it's been loud and clear here that it's not an automatic annual, you get this, we'll have some sort of evaluation bonus or some sort of, you know, you're gonna fall in between here and we can give, that's probably what seems to work the best, but I need to look at that and figure it out before next year, but I haven't put hardly any thought into it while we're in catch-up mode, trying to get people to where they should be. And again, this goes back to the, you know, you have a few years of no raises or very low raises. The years of trying to catch up hurt a lot. And then they happen to come on the same time frame of record inflation and all the other stuff we've
And
been
new
dealing with.
buildings.
Huh?
And new buildings.
And new buildings. It's much better if we can get there and stay there, then it's not as big. I mean, if you look at this sheet, it would be, you know, with the inflation we've had, it would be like 4.5, so 1% over COLA. Hopefully COLA gets back down to 2.3, which
Social
is what
Security just announced there is 2.5
was there's 2.5
today.
Yep.
Today.
So earlier, a few meetings ago, we talked about, I think it was John that mentioned it, that not to be nitpicky and not to try to go through line by line and just give you, you know, just talk
Mhm.
about the totals.
Yeah, if you see something out of whack, definitely say something.
So this was a little bit higher, the 6.82 or whatever number we're talking about was a little bit higher than I thought you were gonna come in at. Is it likely that you'll be able to make up some of that increase in some of the other budgets? So that overall the budget will be lower, the increase will be lower?
We can definitely look at that. I still have a few large numbers looming out there that, you know, healthcare is probably the biggest one that we just haven't got the quotes yet to be able to say, here's where we're gonna be, but. You know, we'll look at that. We brought you a budget we can look through again, but it's fairly lean to maintain the services that we have. There's a couple extra little projects and stuff in there that we can discuss at this table and decide if we're gonna do that or not.
I mean, 6.82 from what you talked about looks reasonable, but it's really not lean either, right? So, I would like to see if we could make some effort to try to make up some of that in the other budgets.
Yeah, no, we'll continue to look and, you know, we're early in the budget season. We have presented you a budget, but we continue to try to tweak those numbers and get them down.
What percentage of the total budget does wages make up?
I don't have that percentage with me, but I can get it for you. It's a large percentage.
It's like over 25%.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Most businesses are in 75-80%.
Really?
Yeah.
No, we were
I
about,
was gonna say, we're probably in that range, especially being a service industry.
Yeah.
You know, we're not buying a lot of raw materials and trying to turn them around.
well,
It's people.
the general fund is what, 6 million? Like, I'm actually trying to find that number and it used to be on our summary report,
Right.
but it's
Probably
not
less of a
anymore.
percentage now with too big.
It's not anymore. So. Like, isn't the general fund like 6?
I might be able to find it.
Because it used to be that. The general fund was a summary line item in one of these pages and I just can't find it.
And this 3 would be. Half of that.
That's what
And I will make my summary sheet by the next meeting, I promise.
Even worse.
Did we get if it's related to what Brad is asking essentially, did we get an answer to that big number that we thought, hey, this seemed a little odd, is it correct, is it not correct?
Yeah, she
Yeah.
sent it out.
An email.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Correct.
It was correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That'll help this a little.
That was.
I missed that email. I'm not.
Part of the two payments.
I'm trying to find the general fund numbers in here. If anybody can find, knows what page it's on. Because the total here says, and that includes water and sewer. So if you look on page,
where's that at?
here, if you look on page 14, but that includes water and sewer. And the big stack of. Big stack of all the numbers.
This one?
Yeah, page 14. Oh, okay.
And if the total matches what they have contingently.
You haven't all, you haven't did this.
Because I think I.
Yeah, you were here for some of the meetings.
Yeah.
So you mixed this handout. So this is the sum of everything.
Okay.
That includes general water and sewer.
7, 8.
And why, you know, just the general number, why wouldn't you want the total of those three?
Because
It's about 7, 8.
7.8,
It was 7.5 last year for general fund operating budget,
We're saying about.
about 7, 8, 7.
So 40%,
so. Right,
give or take.
so these are, so water and sewer are essentially self-funded based on fees collected from water and sewer services.
Yeah, yes.
So only general fund comes out of taxes.
Yeah.
That's why I asked what is the general fund number? Because, so these are the total numbers. So like general water and sewer, and it will, and so it actually, we believe that now it went down, but that's likely because of the water and the sewer, because this went up.
Okay.
The bottom line actually is also going to include your capital projects fund, which is the Route 4A sewer and TIF.
Do we know yet
Expenses for grants.
the 60% of the general fund that is not salaries? What the proposed percentage increase of that will be?
We'll do that with his spreadsheet from last year. That's,
Or
Love this guy.
has to be possible. Not likely.
yeah, and like I said, when I presented you guys the budget and what the numbers will show is like what our healthcare numbers are now,
Yeah.
knowing that they're gonna come down.
Right. Right.
So- The finance software project, although I plugged them all in, so we had worst case scenario, if you will, and then we can pull down. It's
Do we have any,
much rather do that than add to later.
do we have any indication of like approximately when we might know about the healthcare cost?
I am trying hard, but the two companies that we're talking to outside of Health Trust will not give us a quote until we have our new Health Trust number. So that should be in October, but we're waiting. What I've been doing is kind of pre-planning, doing some forecasting with them, trying to get numbers. So when we get those numbers, we can quickly go and we know what direction we want to move in. But it's looking, and I want to say this very cautiously, but it's looking about
So,
an $80,000 to $100,000 cost save.
or just all the line items enacted, just a big rundown.
That's great.
Yeah,
So
I
actually,
don't know nothing.
I think it's great.
You won't get that 2 years in a row.
No. We're looking at the PFA that you know about, and that's one I'm really looking at. And I think there's a little shuffling we can do the next couple of years to have. I don't know if I want to call it a decrease, but we may be able to maintain for the next few years without having large increases, but
Has the select board talked about the longevity, health savings for long-term employees yet? The 8% versus the 19 or whatever it is.
the cost share.
Yeah,
No, and we'll talk about it some, but I'm building a plan. I've talked with my people that have been grandfathered in, that if we're getting what it looks like, a reduction in our side, of cost savings and they're gonna get a reduction in what they pay monthly, then we're gonna make
Oh,
some
that's right.
sort of transition.
That's right.
We did run the numbers the other day and I don't know that I'm gonna move everybody to 80-20 because it looks like some of them will be paying more than they're paying now in the transition with everything. But I can definitely get them a lot closer and then we may do some sort of phased approach like we did with the last one. So
80-20 is pretty good though, in today's environment, so.
it is not in the public sector, and I can send you that data, but most people are in the 85 to 90% of the town paying.
Really,
Yes,
really.
that just went around the listserv as well, and almost everybody was 85 or 90% of the cost share. But we've been aiming towards 80-20 for many years, and I don't plan on changing that.
That's,
So, yeah.
wow.
I mean, the big difference is the pay in the public sector, for the most part, is lower. Some of them are starting to catch up, but, you know, we see it every day. It's in the DPW, we're paying $23 for a truck driver and the ads in the paper are 30 plus for.
Yeah, I'm paying $23.50 for a truck driver.
So,
Make sure you get somebody.
Until he decides to leave for the $35 job.
Happens, right?
Yeah.
Just back to life.
Can I just add on to what Ed just said? So one of my people, or one of the people that was, being heavily, recruited again. And as we get closer in the pay, the major thing that was thrown at my current employee for trying to bring him over was the healthcare. And, so as we get closer in the pay, which we have done a great job, I think, like Ed said, right, this next step is a major step to get us to be all within a very close thing where it's, we're not talking $3 and $5 difference an hour. The number one thing that my current employee got, I guess you'd say headhunted with, is a significant decrease in their, the healthcare plan for 100%.
Sometimes you gotta let them go.
Well, and that's easy.
Enfield is the
Yeah,
town
it's big,
for,
but-
is Hanover and Lebanon, right?
and Keenan,
Yeah. Really, yeah.
That's not a good thing.
that's where they're going.
It was Canaan, it wasn't Hanover.
We're not keeping up
You
with
just say
small
let it go, but that's $75,000 walking up.
It's
the door.
difficult, right? I get it. It's not easy. I get it.
Too
Yeah.
costly.
It'll cost you more to let them go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring them back.
Absolutely, I get it. Well, I get it.
So we need to be competitive. We don't need to be leading the market in pay, but we need to be competitive. I always said in Claremont, we always looked at Lebanon because they're city. But I said, we can't match Lebanon. We're not supposed to, but we need to be within arm's reach. And I'm gonna say the same thing here with our market around us and what we were statistically close to in the compensation plan. We need to be close. We don't need to be the front runners, but we need to be close.
And as a reminder, the compensation plan wasn't us getting to 100%. We were aiming for the middle.
Right.
That's the middle
So
market.
that's the thing to keep in mind is we weren't going for top.
Good point.
either.
Understood.
And letting them go, I can just say that, when you have good benefits, it's money in your pocket, you're not paying taxes for it. And if you need the health insurance, certainly you want to have good health insurance. But right now, we're in an environment, as is most of the country, where there aren't that many employees out there to apply.
Mhm.
And then, are they the ones you want to hire?
Yeah.
So I think the letting them go comment is has to go with a lot of thought, because
I just think
it
it
could end up
needs to-
worse off.
Understood. I just think we need a balanced approach is all I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a balanced approach.
Well, and like I said, police is a perfect example. You don't just go to any company around or people around and hire a police officer. They're specially trained. There's not many of them out there and they're getting phone calls at home and
And it's
they're actively
enormously
recruiting.
expensive to replace a policeman.
Yes.
And that's why we made the decisions we made last year on those, was because it was gonna be more to not.
Well, and
make
the
that.
police chief can show you some of the data. We've been looking at it, but you know, we went down a couple police officers last year. Did we get through the year? Yes, but if you look at the statistics, car stops, DUIs, those types of things were way down because we're not out there doing that. We're running call to call and we're not patrolling. We're, you know, safety numbers, robberies, those types of things will go. And we need to know what we're doing when we make those decisions.
And part of that's your employees' mental health.
You have a question.
Lindsay?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear you now. Sorry, I wanted to just make a comment that in the town next door in Orange, their clerk went on vacation and didn't tell anybody. So that meant nobody could register their car. Nobody could register their boat. Nobody could file their taxes. Nobody could register to vote. It threw the whole town, and it's a much smaller town, into a huge mess. I think some of the comments here are very short-sighted. I think they're insensitive. Our town employees are members of this community, and they serve this community. And your priority should be getting the best and taking care of them, not looking at numbers just looking at the numbers and asking percentages and making this, defacing everybody. A friend of mine's husband had a stroke a week ago at 4 a.m. and they were sure happy that an ambulance from Enfield showed up. He lived because of that. These are people that serve this community, and I really find that some of this conversation and the approach is extremely unfitting. As a moderator, I get paid less than the last moderator. I do twice as much work. I'm not asking for more. But your priority should be to be taking care of people and not just trying to cut a budget by some percentage that you have stuck in your head.
Thank you for the comment. Any other comments?
I would like to just comment back to that and say that I don't think any of us sitting here are looking to cut and chop everything. We're trying to find a balance and take care of people at the same time, and that's
Let them go is not appropriate. Let them go is not appropriate. So, and all conversations you're having.
Lindsay, I am sorry that I offended you. I did not mean to offend you. I'm trying to strike a balance. Obviously, we want to take care of our employees. They're all hardworking. We certainly want to pay them and compensate them in the right manner. But we also, sometimes we have to think of the taxpayer. And the
I
last,
get that, but they're taxpayers
the last
too.
2 years have
And
been
your
very
conversation
high in
isn't about
terms
taking
of
care of them.
in terms of increases. And it needs to be a balanced approach is all I'm saying. And I did not mean to offend you or anybody else.
Go for it, Lindsay.
All right. Any other discussion needed on this today?
So being a newbie, just how does the process work from here? When do we get tighter with these? There's
So
Tighter.
we have
more concrete
What?
numbers.
We'll go through the presentations coming up. Things change daily, and it'll continue changing daily till the end, I think. But, we continue doing that. Some of the reason I didn't give you all these spreadsheets in your packet till today was they were being worked on. I was still getting information from the other towns. I changed some of them at 3:00 today before I went to the next meeting. And, so we'll continue to tighten those up. You guys will get the presentations from the department. What we tried to do for you is highlight any big changes or things that we think you really should be looking at and asking questions about. We try to explain why they're in there to begin with. And then as you see it towards the end of the budget calendar, there's budget review, budget review, budget review. That's when we really start getting the nuts and bolts together and saying, okay, this overall budget's a little much. Where we know where all these big changes were through the year. What can we do? Or if you guys have other ideas of places where services may be able to be altered, we can have those discussions.
Thank you.
Yeah, we kind of go through everything once
Yeah,
and then
really go through it.
what are the numbers?
When we get it all at once, then we go over it again.
And then we'll try to get you guys numbers earlier. Like I said last time, we tried to give you that financial overview that shows exactly where we're at. Until we get a few more state numbers, we really can't do that and do any sort of justice. But as we get those state numbers, we'll fill them in and we'll get those numbers out there, even if we're still going through the review process, so you guys have a really good idea of where we're at.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else? More public comment needed?
Yeah, just a question at some
Yeah.
point, Dimitri. But I know no one else has this because I'm the only one that asked the question, I think, to Alyssa about, trust funds and that sort of thing. And when I was looking at the MS9, Ed, there's a whole bunch of, it says expendable trusts for Hughes Park, Lakeside Park, Old Home Days, Trail Fund, and the Veteran Memorial Park. And I'm wondering, are these trust funds sort of in addition to accounts that are already in the budget with monies in them? Is this a?
Some of them probably are. I'd have to review what each one's for. They usually have a very specific purpose of what they're supposed to be used for. So,
Right.
and then the other thing we need to be careful about on that is not using those for operational expenses.
No, I understand.
So if we have a project in one of those, then we can
Right.
do it. And that was our discussion at CIP. We were actually headed towards CIP paying for Hughes Park, and it was like, wait a minute, that's in the TIF district. We're using it as public parking. It has an economic development purpose. We can use TIF funds for that. And so we made that transfer to use the TIF funds to keep it out of CIPs. We can have any of those discussions. If you guys hear about a project and you think one of those funds might work, please bring it forward, and we'll be going through those some more as well, but we try to, but we don't catch all of those. So if you guys say, hey, would that fall into this fund? We can definitely research that. And if we can move that money and use those in a wise way, we will do that.
How much money is in them roughly?
Well, in the expendable trust, there's like 421,000, but that's all of them. I was just questioning a few out of those, whether or not it fit something that was already being done.
Like I said, we've really used the cemetery ones in the last couple years because there's been some sign projects and things that they wanted to do that were coming to the budget committee. And it was, hey, we have this trust fund that we can use that money and not use tax money for it. So we'll definitely continue looking at those. You know, I can't think of any like major park projects or anything we're looking at doing besides just basic maintenance right now, except for the Hughes Park parking.
For example, like with the old home days, when we first had that committee, we found that we were soliciting donations from people. But at the end of the year, we might not use all those donations on expenses. And we didn't feel it was right for those donations just to go into the general fund. So we asked to have this created. So from year to year, we have those funds that these are what residents have donated towards the old home days. And some years we may spend have less expenses, but some years we may have more. And we can go into this to, when we have extra expenses.
No, I understand that, but what I was saying is for some of these, it appears that there's also a line item in the regular budget with monies in it besides this trust. So it sort of looks like a double accounting
Well,
thing.
There we are with the old home days again. That is, no money has ever come out of the town budget for that. I think Elisa just puts that in, that's on average what we raise from asking for
Actually,
You'll
donations.
see the expenses show up in the expense line, but we don't budget anything for it. And then at the end of the year, we do an accounting of what came in for revenue what expenses we had, and if revenue is greater, we deposit the difference.
Mhm.
And if the expenses are greater, we ask for the difference.
And we'll be having some more conversations, actually planning one where we have some trust fund money. And there's a expense in next year's budget that we may be able to pull out if we can use that trust fund, so.
So that's just how that one runs. There's probably differences in everyone.
And some of them are very pointed when you actually read what the purpose is. The title sounds like it's this and it can be one specific purpose in that park or something. And so we'll definitely look at those.
Anything else?
Make the motion, we do.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, listen. Listen.